Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports. It's Formula One Weekly. I'm joined by Reece. My name is Mark. Formula One is back. This season's race week starts this weekend. I do apologize, I'm stumbling over there. Bahrain Grand Prix this weekend. We are very excited. The 2023 season is finally upon us. Testing is done. The cars have been made and released and been out on track. Racing drivers are all ready. All the teams are ready. All the pit crews are ready. The fans are certainly ready. Reece, are you ready?
Yes, for sure. It was very exciting to see cars back out on track during testing. But yeah, I'm definitely very excited for this first race of the season.
So, Bahrain first up. And, of course, Bahrain, the always starts the 2020, well, always starts the Formula One season. And it will start this season again. And, yeah, last year, very interesting things happened in the Bahrain Grand Prix. Of course, both Red Bulls, notably, not finishing that race. What do you think we're going to possibly see in this weekend's race coming?
Yes, well, we'll definitely see the cars being pushed to their limits as Bahrain tends to be quite a hot Grand Prix. So it definitely tests the reliability of their cars, as we saw last year, where four Honda power units failed. So hopefully we won't see too many teams power units failing or with too many reliability issues. But yes, hopefully we'll see some close racing.
Yeah, perfect. So the Bahrain Grand Prix, at the moment, Red Bull are geared to be favourites. I mean, the season hasn't started. We haven't really 100% seen what the cars are all going to do. Of course, there are certain beliefs people will have about where teams will finish up. But of course, we have to wait until the actual Grand Prix starts this week with practice sessions 1, 2, 3, and qualifying to actually gauge a better idea of where these cars stand in terms of pace. But then also, obviously, in the race itself, that pace that they might find in the qualifying might not be so telling. We'll only really find out this weekend. I mean, are there any predictions that you want to throw out there in terms of what you might have seen from practice going into this weekend?
Well, from testing, I definitely think there are still some teams sandbagging. Obviously, the kings of sandbagging, Mercedes. I'm certainly hoping that they have been because I'd like to see them back in the mix. As well as I think Aston Martin are going to be extremely competitive this year if testing is any indicator. Of course, you always take testing with a grain of salt, but hopefully Aston Martin are on top of their game.
I think Aston Martin being like a competitive team this season would be really, really cool. Of course, McLaren is the other team we really want to see a bit more competitive. They didn't seem to have the greatest testing 3 days in Bahrain, so hopefully their fortunes change in the race coming up. But yes, Aston Martin certainly going to be challenging McLaren for that best of the rest, and Alpine, of course, for that best of the rest tag. Obviously being behind Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari. So I'm reading an article here, just giving a couple of predictions here and things, and looking at the race weekend ahead of us. So we've got 3 months. So I'm just reading here. So the Bahrain Grand Prix, we've got F1 times for what you can expect this weekend. We've got the 11 a.m. on Friday. That is British Standard Time, so GMT for all of you viewers. If you're in South Africa, that would be 1 o'clock. So practice time and practice session starts at 11:30. Sorry, at 11 a.m. Bahrain time, maybe I think it is. Nonetheless, it's around about midday on Friday if you're around about GMT and South Africa time, with qualifying happening at 5 p.m. on in South African Standard Time on the Saturday. So the times, of course, very very nice for all of us in Europe. So you'll be very much looking forward to that, and also the race will be taking place at about 5 p.m. South African Standard Time, and if you're in the GMT time zone, it'll be about 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So we've got a little quote here from Max Verstappen. Well, this is Max Verstappen saying, "Our goal is to win this weekend and then win the championship. So we've improved," is what he said. So is it big confidence in Red Bull already, basically going into the season thinking, you know what, we've already got this in the bag. This is our season already.
Well, I don't think you ever go into a season expecting to win. I think you always obviously have to have a little bit of humility, and obviously work towards it. Red Bull are certainly showing a very competitive car already. Max Verstappen looking very, very confident and is obviously not even getting in the car in day 3 of testing. That just shows how much confidence he has in that car. But I definitely think that some of the other teams are going to be a lot more competitive this year, especially Ferrari, who have supposedly made some gains on their engine during the winter break.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we look at the Scuderia and we think, they've got a very new car concept going into the season. They've changed quite a few components in their car, and hopefully it won't come with the same problems they had with last season. But there are new components, so they will have to try them out and things. And Charles Leclerc had this to say. He says, "I feel we've got some work to do. Red Bull seems to be very strong." So is that them just trying to lessen people's predictions and expectations? Because people have looked at the Ferrari and said, well, that's the only team really so far that we think could match the Red Bull for pace. So is that just Charles Leclerc saying, you know what, just let us fly under the radar here. Let's not try and put a big spotlight on us. Or is that them genuinely thinking Red Bull are already ahead of us?
Well, it's very difficult to know so far. I mean, we haven't seen them out on track competitively at all. So I don't really want to shoot myself in the foot and say anything. But I think they are going to be competitive. If they're going to be able to match the Red Bull and beat them, that is yet to be seen.
Okay, so we've got some commentators' predictions here, which is quite interesting in terms of placing. So they want to place the top 10 placements for each teams in terms of points for the weekend, and it's interesting to note that all of them they've asked. So we've got the likes of Ted Kravitz, David Croft, and Anthony Davidson. They've all predicted Red Bull to win this weekend and all predicted Ferrari to come second. Is that a fair assessment based off of testing only? So if we just based on testing, so let's not shoot ourselves in the foot, base it just off of testing, do we think that that's probably what's going to happen?
Well, based off of the testing times, yes. But then again, as I said earlier, you never know with the likes of Mercedes. They may still be holding back a little bit. I certainly would like to see them jump up a bit, but I think Red Bull are definitely going to be extremely competitive and definitely going for that win this weekend.
And most notably here, I'm looking at these predictions here. I've got Aston Martin is predicted third by one of them, or otherwise tied third with Mercedes, or Mercedes just beating him into that third position. So they reckon Aston Martin will win the best of the rest this weekend. That's a prediction that all of these people think. And the other notable position here is Williams, who all of the commentators so far and the pundits think is going to do the worst this weekend, which is certainly interesting to note.
It will be interesting to see. I was reading an article this morning that showed that they'd actually, based on their times from last year in testing, they've gained about 2 seconds. So it will be very interesting to see. Obviously, they were one of the slowest cars last year. So if they have made such a big improvement, hopefully they will be in contention somewhere in the midfield.
100%. So we look at the Grand Prix coming this weekend, and alongside that, we've had other news happen throughout the week, and most notably today, we had a change to one of the tracks on the circuit for this coming schedule for the year. Just notably, please notice that we have lost Reece temporarily. I think he will just quickly refresh his feed. There he is. He's back. He is back.
Sorry, I think I'm back now.
Yes, he is back. And so I just want to quickly change my little article here. So Spanish Grand Prix, the Catalonia circuit, has got a change which so many fans and especially you, Reece, I think, have been asking for ages, which is that change to just after turn 13, which saw a chicane happen before turn 14, and now it's been completely straightened out, as you can see in the image ahead of us. And you see in the top right there that little change there, which would stop cars from going too quickly there because there wouldn't be a straight line, has now been turned into a full straight. So your thoughts on that change?
Yes, I'm very glad to see it back in Formula One racing. Of course, we used to have that circuit layout from 2006, and before then, they then changed it to the chicane in 2007. I'm definitely glad to see it back, being a lot faster. I think it's going to create a lot more overtakes for us, especially with the new regulation of cars.
Exactly. And also, the other noticeable thing, though, I suppose, is will all of the teams actually be thankful for this? Or do you think there's a couple that are going to be thinking, well, that's actually, I'm actually a little upset about that because Of course, having a longer straight means that having it go straight through, of course, means that it's going to be a quicker section, and it will allow for cars to go a bit more flat out. So it's going to favor those cars which gain pace in the straights rather than those cars which gain in the corners. So the likes of what would have been Ferrari last year might well be upset about that change.
Well, if Ferrari have made the gains that they've supposedly made over winter, then I think they'll be all right. Supposedly, they're supposed to be a lot closer to Red Bull and their top speed now. But I think for the like of Mercedes, who were also a bit down on speed last year, or top end speed, I think they are going to be a little bit upset about it. But I think all in all, it definitely helps if you're following another car and want to overtake. It's a lot more similar to Monza.
Yeah, and also, we want to see it as racing fans. We want to see more overtakes. We want to see better racing, and supposedly this will assist in that. Having longer straights means there's more overtaking opportunity. There's more of a chance for cars to get ahead and to follow, as you say. So a welcome change, I think, by most. But we will, of course, only see that in the Spanish Grand Prix. Not too far away, the Spanish Grand Prix, of course. It's quite early on in the season. Nonetheless, that is to come. So, I mean, other things that we can see that's happened in the last week. Drive to Survive obviously came out last week. Your thoughts so far on the series?
Yes, well, me being me, I binge watched all of it already, so I can speak to all of you about it. Uh,
So
I think
spoilers
it was
ahead is what
definitely
you're
worth
saying.
watching. So, well, I'll try not to give any away for those who haven't watched it.
We've got to give
But
a little bit
yes, it
ahead.
was a brilliant season. But it was definitely a very good season with some explosive activity on track as well as behind the scenes, which Netflix always does such a great job of showing us behind the scenes.
Yeah, and so you know these series are often exaggerated a lot, to try and create drama. That's the whole point, is to really create drama and to create suspense and disbelief at some of the things that might well have happened in these obviously the season last year throughout. So anything that you've noted that was dramatic, regardless anyway, that the public had not seen as of yet.
Well, if you haven't watched Drive to Survive, of course. But yes, there was a very explosive scene with Toto Wolff and all of the team bosses. I won't go into too much detail, obviously not to spoil, but it's definitely worth watching. I think it's in the second or third episode.
Which probably sums up Toto Wolff's frustration at last season, because I think he was probably the most angry person throughout the entire season due to the fact that Mercedes had been dominant for so many years and had just completely fallen off the pace, just bam, like that in one season. So might well have been just pent up anger at the fact that his own team wasn't being able to perform, and maybe he decided he'd take that out on everybody else. But yes, certainly something that everybody should go and watch, and be sure to go and just remember that some of it is dramatized beyond the scopes of what many people will believe what actually happened. There are drivers that are not big fans of the show. Max Verstappen being a very vocal anti-supporter of Drive to Survive. He's very supportive of the fact that it's brought more fans, but hates the fact that they've created drama where there is none. But of course, a great
Yes,
series
well,
nonetheless.
he is actually in this series of Drive to Survive. He doesn't speak a lot, but he does have a small speaking role.
Yeah, as I say, so it's Max Verstappen. I think just doing what he needs to do in terms of getting the right look from the media, but of course he has expressed many times his dissatisfaction at the production, I suppose, in terms of producing fake, sometimes disagreements and or other debacles, essentially. But nonetheless, a very, very good series for you guys to go and watch. And if you guys haven't watched Drive to Survive yet, I do recommend you go and watch all of the previous series as well, all the seasons, and see all of the things that happen behind the scenes in Formula One. It is certainly very interesting and very exclusive, of course. So what an interesting series it is to watch. And of course, you can then see how it unfolded last year. How did Red Bull get ahead of everybody else? So, of course, as I say, we go back to our original topic. Bahrain is this weekend. Our schedule this year is exceptionally packed. Obviously, the longest Formula One schedule, or the most races at least, but out of any season ever. So we're starting with the Bahrain Grand Prix. What happens after the Bahrain Grand Prix? Well, first of all, we'll know exactly how fast some cars are already and that will then determine the rest of the season. So just trying to find a schedule, of course, for the F1 season. But, I mean, so many races, Reece. Can cars actually cope with it?
Yes, I mean, I think the cars can definitely cope with it. It's more about the drivers. If they can deal with the amount of traveling, the amount of stress, as well as physical stress that it puts on your body, um, it's definitely going to be an interesting season, that is for sure.
So we look at the season now, and I'm just looking at the dates. So we've got 3rd of March is the Bahrain Grand Prix, so 3rd to the 5th of March. Then 2 weeks later, we've got the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Then again, another 2 weeks, Australia, and then there's a 3 week break, and then Azerbaijan. So all of those ones, of course, the opening 4 weekends before we head off to America. Now, those 4 races there, if Red Bull somehow get a podium finish for both their drivers in all of those races, will we suddenly see a big drop off in support? Not for Red Bull, but for Formula One, because will it then just look like it's going to be another hugely dominant season for Red Bull?
Well, that's very hard to tell. I mean, of course, there's been a massive increase in viewership since Drive to Survive came out, and I think that's going to hold on to a lot of the audience. I don't think you can necessarily predict the season so easily. I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than what we think. At least I certainly hope so.
Exactly, and we want to see Ferrari and want to see Mercedes really challenge Red Bull right at the top there. And of course, both of us are Red Bull fans nonetheless, but we would still like to see those other teams really compete and make it a very interesting season for us to watch. And I'd love to see it go right down to the wire at the end of the season. So obviously a notable thing for the season coming that we can definitely talk about is the fact that there are so many sprint races coming up this season. The first sprint, of course, happening in Azerbaijan. So just explain for those who still might not know what the sprint race is. What do we expect in a sprint race? How does it work?
Well, a sprint race is pretty much just a shortened race. You're only allowed to use one tire. You don't have to make any pit stops, and it works pretty much like a race version of qualifying. It's quite exciting for the fans, of course, being able to watch a sprint race as it's normally held on a Saturday when you would have qualifying. And then it's whatever the order is, your finishing order dictates the starting order for Sunday's main race.
Yeah, as I say, it's a really cool addition to Formula One, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing more and more of those go on. But honestly, the big issue that comes with sprint races is the fact that it then adds a seriously big risk in terms of the main race, because it's obviously in race conditions, the likelihood for cars to crash is very high. So it means that you could possibly go into what is essentially a qualifying session for that race and crash out and completely damage the car right before the main race the following day. So that part of it, people might not be so keen on. But we've got, I think, how many sprints do we have this season? Do you remember?
I think we have 4, if I'm not mistaken. I will research that quickly to make sure I am speaking the truth.
I'm seeing 3 now. I'm seeing, trying to look at the four,
So it
5.
is the Belgium Grand Prix,
6.
Qatar, United States, Circuit of the Americas. So far it's 3
So I've got
from what
6
I've seen.
sprints. That's what my schedule's saying. 6 sprints in total, which is a lot, of course. So I've got the Azerbaijan race. That is the 28th to the 30th of April. That is the first sprint of the season. After that, we've got a sprint race in Austria. Then we've got a sprint race again in Belgium. Then the next sprint after that happens in Qatar. Then in the United States immediately afterwards. So that's quite interesting. We've got a sprint race 2 weekends straight after each other. And then the last sprint race happens in Brazil. So lots of sprints, lots of races, and I do mean a very jam-packed session for Formula One this season. Of course, they've got new tracks here. They've got a lot of American tracks suddenly. Obviously, I think that's a lot of that's to do with Drive to Survive. No?
Yes, for sure. Definitely to do with Drive to Survive.
Yeah. So, as I said, result of Drive to Survive got lots of American audiences now watching, and to just continue to increase that, they've added a few American races, of course. So, Americans are going to be chuffed about it. I will say this though: the Miami Grand Prix was possibly the most disappointing Grand Prix of the season last year. I think it was, for me, it was the most dire, the most boring, and the most fake. If that makes sense. I mean, that was obviously the one quite famous for having a fake yacht club area where they literally painted
Yeah,
water. So it was very funny. That, of course, I'm hoping Miami can do something different this year to make it a little bit more exciting. But yeah, Max Verstappen, is he looking for 3 drivers' championships in a row? It's a good question, isn't it? Red Bull should hopefully start well this weekend. I'll tell you what, it can only be a better start than last weekend if their cars finish. And yeah, so I've reached the end of most of what I want to talk about in terms of Formula One. Obviously, we were just really excited about the weekend coming up. Your thoughts about anything that's happened?
Yes, I've got one more point. Yes, definitely. I had one more article, obviously, to talk about. There was just the fact that Lance Stroll is obviously looking like he will not be able to participate in the Canadian Grand Prix. He did have a cycling accident right before testing, so he was also not able to participate in any of the preseason testing. Supposedly, he has injured both of his wrists from a cycling accident, which is very unfortunate. But it looks like we are going to be having Felipe Drugovich replacing him if he is not able to participate this weekend at all.
Yeah, and Felipe Drugovich, of course, filled in for Lance Stroll for testing. So it's not like he's going to be new to that car. And they did, of course, therefore have the opportunity to go and adjust and get the feedback from Felipe Drugovich himself with regards to what he wants in that setup. So hopefully it does mean that going into the season, he's not going to be out of the, he's not going to be completely dumbfounded by what he's got to go and do. Of course, as a rookie now going into this race weekend, he should be a lot better off than most drivers, reserve drivers, when they come in, usually sometimes in the middle of the season, where the car has not been made to their exact specifications. They're just pretty much got to deal with what the other driver has done. So quite a good opportunity for Felipe Drugovich at least to put himself in the best possible position for his first race in Formula One. Of course, I don't think he thought it would be so early on. So Aston Martin there, of course. He will have a very experienced teammate, though, at least to support him, that of Fernando Alonso. How keen are you to see Fernando Alonso race this year?
I'm very excited. I think he's got a very competitive car, and he's definitely going to use it to the fullest, as we've seen him doing multiple other teams as well as other formulas. Of course, doing incredibly well in the 24-hour Le Mans, showing that he definitely still has those skills and has some great speed in him.
I mean,
I think he's definitely going to be very competitive.
Yeah, he's a very old driver these days. I mean, you look at the grid; he is the most experienced driver on the grid. After that, you look at the likes of Lewis Hamilton, and Nico Hulkenberg, and Kevin Magnussen. But these are Fernando Alonso is quite well ahead of the lot in terms of experience. He's been there, done that, and he really has been there for a long, long time. Does it not just surprise you at how competitive and how good he still is?
Yes, of course. I mean, he's 41 years old. He's phenomenal for his age still to be able to compete in Formula One, which is so competitive. I think it will be incredible to see him competing for the top 3, for podiums, for race wins. I mean, it would definitely be a testament to how competitive he still is and how strong he is as a racing driver.
I mean, I think about it now and I go, you know what? Fernando Alonso actually is probably my favorite driver after my team. So if I wasn't supporting Red Bull, I wasn't supporting the lot. I think, me personally, I'm not so much following teams. Then I'm going, you know what? I'd love to see Fernando Alonso go and take a race win. Wouldn't that just be the absolute best thing in the season? You're going to see Fernando Alonso. He's seemingly got a very competitive car. So it's not like it's a small possibility. It's maybe quite a big possibility that he could go and get a win. But I think there can't be any Formula One fans who will be upset at seeing Fernando Alonso take a Grand Prix.
No, I definitely don't think so.
And I mean, we've got the Catalonia circuit, of course, has been changed. That would be his home circuit, of course, being the Spanish man he is. Ferrari fans also love him. Of course, was with Ferrari for many, many seasons. But the other things that I'm always looking forward to in terms of Fernando Alonso is his antics on the track, in terms of his comments. I do enjoy his radio messages. He's quite funny in them. He's very blunt, and usually sometimes quite scathing of other drivers and their skills. So I will certainly enjoy watching Fernando Alonso this season. Reece, I think we're going to start to wrap up. So do you have any final thoughts about anything that you want to talk about? Yeah, anything for the season?
No, nothing really more from me. Obviously, I'm very excited for the first race to see uh, where our teams all line up, who is going to be the most competitive leading into the season. And I mean, we all have some predictions, but it will be interesting to see some real on-track pace.
Come on, your predictions and those watching as well. I want to see predictions. Give me your top three. Just give me your top three.
Um, Based off testing, I'm going to say Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston Martin, or Mercedes.
No, but that's going for drivers.
It's difficult to tell for that third place. It's very competitive.
Yeah, but the problem is, I'm actually going to push you further here because that's just for teams, total points. I want to see who's coming first, who's coming second, who's coming third. Let me know right now. Who's finishing where?
Obviously, my opinion will change after practice 1, 2, and 3. But for now, I'm going to say Max Verstappen at the top, then Sergio Perez, then possibly Charles Leclerc.
So you're saying at 1-2 for Red Bull. That's a bold prediction, So I'll match you here because I won't certainly ask you such a prediction and then not give a prediction myself. But I think I'm also going to follow you and say I'm going to say Max Verstappen 1, and I'm going to say I actually reckon Charles Leclerc 2, Fernando Alonso 3, and then you're going to see the following Red Bull of Checo. I think something goes a little wrong with Checo or one of the Red Bull cars. Certainly, I think might well. I just don't see it's going to be a clean race. I reckon there will be a couple of big name teams and big name drivers that not necessarily crash out, but certainly have issues going into the week. That's my prediction at least. I'm going to say Max Verstappen 1, Charles Leclerc 2, Fernando Alonso 3. I don't think Mercedes make anywhere near the podium this weekend. I don't know. Tell me I'm wrong, but those are my predictions at least.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see if Mercedes can shake it up a bit this weekend.
Yeah. And of course, you can join us on Forever Motorsports and on Forever Sports, of course, to watch the Bahrain Grand Prix this weekend. We are so excited that Formula One is back. Formula One is finally back. I'm so keen. It is in Bahrain. It takes place Friday is the first day, of course, and on Thursday we will do a little preview after the drivers' press conference, of course, so we can get their thoughts as well. And I'm very much looking forward to the Bahrain Grand Prix. Reece, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody, thank you so much for watching. We will, of course, do this every week. So be sure to come and join us for the live show every Monday. And we will accept comments, of course, read through comments and just give the news of the week and basically recap, of course, any weekends of Formula One. You have been watching Forever Motorsports. Thank you so much. And until next time, goodbye.